Hey everybody, what is going on? I'm Alexander Williamson, and this is The Secret History of Living in Your Aquarium. Today we're going to be talking about 10 of the most intelligent fish species. Now, I know that might sound a little weird because traditionally fish have gotten the short end of the stick. Another Seattleite native and Washingtonian native, just like I am, Kurt Cobain even once said, "It's okay to eat fish. Fish don't have no feelings." Well, while he was underneath that bridge writing that song, a lot of people actually thought that fish couldn't feel pain. And now we have proof that fish, of course, feel pain. They have all the same evolutionary nervous system response mechanisms that mammals do and that humans even do. They may not have the emotional component and memory part linked the same way as humans or primates or dolphins or pigs even, but it's there, and they're smaller creatures. The signals may even move faster, and in some fish the signals are decentralized. So today we're going to be talking about 10 of the most fascinating ways in which intelligence has expressed itself in the fish world. Now, people will say sometimes, oh, goldfish, they don't have memories of 3 seconds, or they have an 8-second, they just make up some number, right? Well, they remember being fed a few days ago, and they remember their owners, and they'll actually respond for food for their owners and not for random people walking by in an office complex, for instance. So there's all sorts of ways that fish are much more intelligent than you may think, and a lot of times we write it off as instinct or something else. But in the classical terms, as defined by, in my 8th grade best essay delivery, Webster's, defines intelligence as the acquisition or the gathering of knowledge and skills and applying those to meet a goal. That is what intelligence is. In fact, it can be abstract too. It can just be the acquisition of that, but we have no way to show that that's going on. Now, a lot of times things are written off. We say that salmon spawning or those fish coming to eat that know their owners, that's instinct or, something along those lines. But I'm going to count down today on this list 10 fish that I think and that scientists think, and behavioral neuroscientists, biologists, ichthyologists have said are expressing different forms of intelligence in amazing ways. And that may be through thinking about how they're going to sneak up on something and figuring out the distance of something. It may not just be logical intelligence. It may be spatial intelligence. Some of them use tools. Some of them even have something similar to language. I'm so excited to tell you about it. So let's jump right in right now with number 10 and talk about the 10 most interesting and intelligent fish in our aquarium hobby. So coming in at number 10, here we go. Now, the blue cleaner wrasse, or the Atlantic blue cleaner wrasse, is an incredible little fish. I wish I could tell you all about it, but I promised you I was going to try to keep this video brief. So, here's the gist of it. These fish survive by eating the algae and biofilm and mucus and all sorts of fungi and parasites and little creepy crawlies that live on sharks, manta rays, and large fish like whale sharks or sunfish. And they come up from the reef, and when they see them, they clean it off. Well, that's interesting, right? But these cleaner races are so good at remembering which fish they cleaned last that they can remember up to a year earlier a fish that they cleaned, a shark or a manta ray or a stingray. They will remember when they cleaned it last. And when it comes through again on its migratory pattern, whether that's weekly or monthly, whichever fish is around that they cleaned the longest time back, they will make sure they service it first so that it will come through their cleaning station every time it's on the reef. So this fish has actually evolved the ability to remember fish from other species and say, you know what, it's been 9 months since I cleaned that one. And when they do it in laboratories and they put them in there and they wait and see if they just use, say, 3 of the same fish and they switch up which order they're cleaned in and so forth, the fish can look and it will remember by which one it serviced, not by which one has the most algae on it or barnacles or whatever it may be that it's judging by, but it remembers when it cleaned it, and it services it first in hopes that that fish will come back around and it will have a reliable meal for it and its friends on the reef. Pretty incredible, don't you think? Coming in at number 9, we have a beautiful fish, the beautiful pumpkin seed fish. It's a North American native fish, and I wish more people kept this in aquariums because it's just as beautiful as a lot of tropical fish. But not only is this fish beautiful and cool to look at, also its nests are incredible. So when it is ready to spawn every year, it will find an area in shallow water, and usually they will do so in a large colony with dozens of other males in the area, and they will clear out a perfectly round circle in the substrate, and they will kind of spin on an axis, and they'll use their tail to kind of dust it away. They'll make a perfect circle, and then they'll collect any sort of rougher debris, so sticks, stones, even litter, and they will go get things that contrast the color of the sand, and they will make a perfect bullseye for the females to swim by and say, wow, that took a lot of energy. That male took a lot of time and energy. He had plenty of food while he did it, and he's probably going to make a good father for my babies. So whether you want to say that that's evolutionarily an intelligent thing, it's a very complex process, and they take weeks keeping their nest neat and tidy, and sometimes they'll even use it multiple times within the same year, and they will guard that nest with their life to protect the babies that are waiting to hatch underneath it. Just another incredible fish on our list. All right, number 8 is going to be one that is stealing a trick from the bird world, and that is the beautiful, yet again, we got another beautiful fish. Man, these fish are beautiful. The cuckoo catfish, or Synodontis, and this fish actually lives in the Rift Lakes, in Lake Tanganyika in Africa, and it lives around all sorts of different cichlids. Now, we know that cichlids are intelligent fish, but you may not know about this incredible fish, which hangs out around all those nesting cichlids that do pretty similar behavior to what we were just talking about with the pumpkin seed fish. And they build nests, they hold babies in their mouth because they don't trust that their nests are out in view, and they think that other fish may take advantage of that. And so these fish do something very sneaky, and they lay their eggs right when the fish that are nesting and mouth brooding are laying their eggs. Then their babies, just like a cuckoo bird, and that's why this is called the cuckoo catfish, gets switched around, and their babies get picked up as eggs as they zoom by and drop off a few eggs, and their babies get picked up into the mouth of the parents of the cichlids. And while they're in there with their mouth closed, thinking they're protecting their babies, and the babies are eating this mucus in their mouth that gives them all the nutrients they need, these cuckoo catfish are eating those babies and eating the mucus off of them. And when the fish opens its mouth, they come out, and not only do they don't just run away, no. They hang out around those fish because those fish don't see them as a threat. They're a small little catfish, and they stay there as long as they can for protection until they swim off, and months later, they pull the same trick again and again and again. Another incredible behavior from the fish world. All right, number 7 on our list is another beautiful fish. What am I going to do? I mean, they're all beautiful fish, right? But the discus. Discus are a fish that are well known in our aquarium hobby, just like the last fish maybe. And they have a very unusual way of reproducing in that they have babies, and the babies then eat mucus. Yeah, they eat a slime off of the parents, and it's almost like a mammal's milk. It transfers the mother's and father's immune system to the babies when they feed off of the parents. And so by eating that mucus coating, they're getting all the germs and all the protection that those fish have had in their life, plus their parents and their parents and so on and so forth. But that's not just the only amazing part. These fish then hang out with their parents for several weeks. And as the fish get big enough that they don't need to just eat microscopic amounts of this mucousy, we'll call it fish milk, they actually have to go out and forage food on their own in the Amazon or in the Orinoco, wherever they're living out in the river, and they have to eat their own food. So the fry are slowly eating less and less off of the parents and more of what's out there in the wild, little bugs and biofilms and algae and things. And over time, the parents start a behavior of chasing them away. So as the babies see the parents doing it, they start to mimic it. And as the babies start doing it more and more and get better and better at it, the parents will see which ones are best at it. And they've actually shown that the parents chase them away. So they say, all right, you figured it out. Go on your own. You're big enough. Get away from me. I'm going to eat you if you don't get out of here. Life can be rough as a fish, but that's one fish that takes care of its young. Number 6 on our list is another beautiful fish. It's in the hobby too, the clouded archer fish. And this fish has the ability to squirt water 6 or 7 feet, that's 2 meters or more, out of the water and hit insects on branches or little frogs or ants, anything that it's trying to eat. They're not that big a fish, so they'll eat mostly small bugs and things. But they actually have the ability to target it so well that they can hit a flying insect out of the air or off of a branch. And early explorers in India reported that as these British explorers were going down the river, their pipes would get squirted out as they were on their boats because the fish thought that they were fireflies. And so they were thinking they were going to knock them off that branch, which was the pipe, and they'd put out the pipe. So the locals knew to keep their hand over the pipe as they were going down the river. Now, what's most amazing about this is that they're able to figure this out from underneath the surface of the water. So these fish are able to keep their eyes underwater, and yet their brain can calculate how much force is needed, how much water is needed in their throat, and how hard they're going to have to push on that water in order to make it hit that insect and fall down into the water. And then they have to swim over there and grab it. And, you know, we've spent billions of dollars on guiding targeting systems for torpedoes, submarines, and warships just because of this, how water plays with light and reflections. And this fish evolved it in a matter of mere 30 million years. Pretty amazing. All right, number 5 on the list is one that just blows my mind. So they showed another type of cleaning race. Now, there is I don't know if it's race or wrasse, say it however you will, but they are a fish that live in the reefs in the Caribbean, in the coral reefs. And these fish can actually recognize their own reflection. Now, we know that bettas and other fish can't do that. They see it, they flare, they get mad, they attack. These fish, they recognize themselves in the mirror, and as soon as they saw that the motion was mirroring them in the laboratory, they gave up, they swam away, they lost interest. However, when they showed them a picture of themselves that was a mirror image, so it was a Photoshop picture of them turned around like if they were looking in a mirror, and they put blemishes on them that would be parasites, the fish then would swim around the tank and rub that part of their neck and head against the tank, thinking they needed to remove them, come back to the picture and check if they were gone. Now, if they turned it around and it wasn't a mirror image, the fish wouldn't do this. And researchers thought that was really weird for a while. And then they realized these fish are so smart that they're not just recognizing themselves, because they tried switching out plenty of other individual fish and they wouldn't respond. They wouldn't go clean themselves if it was another fish from the group. But when it wasn't a mirror image, they didn't respond either, because they're used to seeing mirror images from the reflection on the surface of water and in the eyes of other creatures or on shiny surfaces. That's where they'd see themselves in the wild. And that's why they have a concept of what they should look like and where their own spatial bodily anatomy is. That is mind-blowing to me. But let's continue down our countdown. Alright, next on our list is something called associative learning or associated learning. And this is classical basic learning. So the whole experiment, if you remember from psychology class, of Pavlov and his dogs, he would ring a bell, and when he rang the bell, then within a minute or two, he would give a treat to the dog. So the dogs would soon learn that when they hear this bell, it meant food. Now, soon he would be able to ring the bell, and the dogs would come over and start salivating just from hearing the bell. And this is considered classical conditioning or basic learning or associative learning. Well, they did a study involving the Bosemani rainbow fish, just because the people in the study happened to like the Bosemani rainbow fish, the grad students, and they set up a pen with different doors. They had 4 different doors on 4 different sides of the tank. And a light would turn on before each day at a different time, a random time, and then within 30 seconds to a minute randomly, some food would come through a slot at that door. But it only happened when it was a certain door that was lit up ahead of time, and then the food came out. The other doors, nothing would appear. So, on average, the rainbow fish started going to the door that was the feeding door within 14 trials. 14 times of seeing this play out, they figured it out. Now, rats, they took an average of 19 times, and dogs took an average of 22 times. Now, cats could do it also, but their average was all the way up into 38 times, but they think that that was because, and no joke, because the cats would kind of walk around, do their own thing, and then go to the food. And so often they were just being cats and walking around that they didn't actually go to the food with much vigor. And so it was a little hard to record, you know, if they were going towards the food or just doing something else, like cleaning themselves and then wandering around. Needless to say, the fish are intelligent, people. I'm trying to tell you. Alright, number 3 on our list involves a fish called the tusk fish. And this fish eats a special diet of clams, mostly clams and oysters and mussels. And it doesn't have the ability to crack them with its own mouth or beak. So many species have evolved the ability to eat them with their own mouth or beak. However, this fish does live around other fish and other creatures in the ocean that have that ability. They can pick up a clam and crunch it and then eat the insides. And when they do that, these tusk fish run over and start eating what they can of the scraps. But scientists observed in the wild that these fish would have special areas where they would find actual big rocks that came to a V, that came into a section where they kind of funneled together. And these fish would grab a clam in their mouth, swim above that section, and drop the clam over and over until it would crack enough that they could then pry it open and eat it. How crazy is that? They're using tools. They have a nutcracker for the clam chowder they want to eat. Pretty wild, and yet again, this is in nature that they're observing this. So we may have never seen this in the lab. It's hard to say, but nevertheless, it's amazing. Alright, coming in at number 2 is a fish you probably wouldn't expect. It's one of the most studied vertebrates in all of the world, and that is the zebradano, or the zebrafish. And this fish may not be on the top of the intelligence charts as far as cichlids and other fish may go, and manta rays and puffers. They may be a lot more intelligent. However, their spatial awareness is extremely well developed, and it means that they can train these fish by putting up a screen on either side of their tank and also a screen below them, or by allowing them to swim down a long tank. And what they will do is they will give them food at a certain part of the tank. So they will train them to go, say, 20 feet or the equivalent of 20 feet. And what it does is as they're moving, image tracking software moves video from a real river that was 20 feet of distance. So they feel like, and they look from side to side and think they're actually swimming even if they're standing still. So what they did is they gave them food at, say, 20 feet. Well, then what they did is they took away the cues, and they only allowed time to be the factor. So they turned the lights on and put them in a blank white box and said, you go for however long. Well, at the speed that they usually swam at towards the food, their average swimming speed, which was also calculated, they were able to tell within 4 feet of that 20-foot mark where they were going to stop because of the time from before to get their treat. When they try this with humans, humans usually go 50% farther or shorter than when they were blindfolded versus not blindfolded and told to walk a certain distance for a reward, say $100. You walk 100 feet, you get $100. Well, humans tend to be 50% off when they don't have any visual cues to tell them how far they've gone. Fish, on the other hand, have all sorts of sensory systems around their body that they use to calculate and figure out how far they've moved. And even a fish as simple as the zebra danio can do that. Pretty smart fish. All right, number one, and probably the most amazing fish on this list, in my opinion, is actually a small group of fish, a genus of fish, of mormyrids is what they're called. They're African fish, and they're known as the knife fish and the elephant nose fish because, well, yeah. So they are a very intelligent fish, and the Egyptians even put them in high status on all of their artwork. They show them as gods and deities, as special spirits, and they were not to be eaten under any circumstances with the penalty of death, just like cats. So these fish, it turns out, they are electric, and they have an electric organ in themselves that makes pulses of electricity, but it's not to shock things like an electric eel. It's to communicate. And males and females make different sounds and different wavelength frequencies. So the females make a more curved sine wave, whereas the males have more of a jagged up and down sudden 90-degree turn, like glitchy sounding wave. And you can actually listen to these by putting a headphone jack that picks up that electric signal in the water and playing it off a speaker. Not only that, they've figured out that these fish have near 40 different unique sounds for each of the genders, and that oftentimes if there's something like food or danger, they have a word or signal that's repeatable for that. And not only that, when something was going on, one could say a certain electrical signal, and it would silence all the other fish in the area for 30 seconds or so. And then that same fish, within about 15 seconds, would relay another signal. So if it was really important, the fish could send this one signal that everyone knows means, hey, shut up. And they could say, danger, hit the deck, or food this way, or hey, I'm spawning, or who knows what they're saying. We need to start decoding the complexity and what it is that's going on with these fish, because clearly some of them have something approaching a language and they're talking to each other. Things that even primates have a hard time with learning and have to learn it in sign language from us. These have it out in the wild. It's absolutely incredible. Of course, it's nowhere as near as elaborate as primates, but it's fascinating nonetheless. And I am so happy that you made it down the countdown with me. And if you find fish interesting, fascinating, and you want to learn more about them, this is the channel for you. I'm constantly sharing interesting information about fish, aquariums, and everything related to our hobby. So if that sounds good to you, subscribe, hit that like button, of course. That always really helps spread a video, and share it with a friend. Share some interesting information for the day with a friend with this video. It helps a lot. If you really want to help the channel, you can become a member for $1.99. And once you do that, go to the community tab, and there's all sorts of extras. There's links, downloadable content, all sorts of interesting research that I'm always working on. Regardless of if you do any of that, just being here with me, watching this, and knowing you care about the world around you and the creatures around you means a lot to me, and I want to thank you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next time on The Secret History, Living in Your Aquarium.